I pulled guard duty. I was assigned to one of the towers on the outermost perimeter of the location I was assigned to. The tower was about 40 feet high with a vertical ladder to the top. It had a concrete landing at the base, and each team that was assigned to the tower was required to hoist all of the equipment to the top of the tower that was needed for the night's tour. A machine gun, night vision goggles, grenade launcher, and several other pieces of equipment that had to be brought to the top of the tower. The tower height required that there would be a pulley mounted next to it, and that pulley was used to draw all of that equipment to the top. The pulley was attached at the top of the tower and ran down along the side of the ladder. That was a vertical ladder that we climbed to the top of the tower on. It was pouring down rain that first night that I showed up, but I showed up on time for my guard post. I was wearing my poncho and all of my rain gear, and I climbed the ladder, and when I was at the top of the ladder, I tried to pull myself into the tower. There was no handle or grip on the tower. We just grabbed the boards at the top of it and we would pull ourselves in. But the boards on the tower were wet. When I reached out to grab, I tried to grab one of the crevices and pull myself in. My hand slipped and I fell backwards. For the next few split seconds, everything that I had done while I was in Vietnam flashed in front of my eyes, and I was thinking to myself of how I walked away from a safe job flying in helicopters to take a guard duty job. And I'd lost my confidence in God to carry me through just about any severe or significant task. My commitment to Him and the testimony that I carried with me in Vietnam was now somehow questionable even in my own mind. And in those few split seconds, my life just flashed in front of me. But when I was about 8 or 10 feet from the base of the tower where the concrete landing was, somehow the rope that we used to hoist things to the top got underneath my poncho, wrapped itself around my right hand twice. I grabbed it, pulled it, and it broke my fall. Now, I fell about 8 or 10 feet, and I had some pretty severe lacerations on my hand where the rope cut into it. I was bruised up. I was, needless to say, embarrassed in front of all of my peers who were standing at the top of the tower looking down and wondering if I was going to survive it. But God performed a miracle that day. And I learned from that my commitment to trust Him on flight duty had failed, but He made sure that I knew that He was ready to accept full responsibility for the life that was wholly committed to Him. Now, Brenda, my wife, who is here with me today, and I will be celebrating our 40th wedding anniversary this coming March. We have 2 absolutely wonderful children, 3 wonderful grandchildren, and a 4th one that's on the way. Our kids have always been a source of joy in our lives, and we did our best to raise them with a love for Christ in their hearts. And we've succeeded in doing that. They're great kids, and they're very involved in church. And in that, their relationship in church, they're serving the Lord and they're raising our grandchildren in that way as well. Well, my mother died in a car accident about 20 years ago, and my father remarried several months after she died. And as all too often the case when things of that nature happen, there was some strife in the family. Comments were made that were inappropriate, and the family got pulled apart. My father and I went separate ways. He moved to Florida with his new wife, and we really didn't have much communication at all for a number of years. Well, several years later, Dad called me one day unexpectedly. At this point in time, I'd been promoted to lieutenant. I was working out of the chief's office again. He wanted to come by and see me, and of course I agreed, and he got to my office that day, and we sat down together. I closed the door, and he said he wanted to apologize and make things right. So we cried, and we hugged each other, and I apologized, and we began to rebuild a relationship that had been broken. Shortly after that visit, I got promoted to police captain, and shortly after I was promoted to captain, my wife became very ill. She developed a blood disease known as idiopathic autoimmune hemolytic anemia. She can't even say that, but I can. Or Evans syndrome. It was a disease that had a 50% survival rate at the time. Brenda spent days at a time in the hospital, and at one point she was in St. Mary's Hospital for 21 consecutive days. Her condition was serious, and her immune system was collapsing. She was contracting multiple infections, and her situation was worsening each day. I found myself trying to learn a new job as a police captain, going to the hospital 2 or 3 times a day, working to keep my children in a home environment that was unchanged, with the exception of the absence of their mother from the house. But Brenda's condition became so bad that at one point I was called to the hospital because there was concern that she wouldn't live through the night. And I found myself asking God questions and wondering why this was happening to a family that had always served Him and put Him first in our lives. Why was it happening? What did we do to deserve it? I was literally on the verge of a nervous breakdown when my father and his wife showed up at my home and said they were there to help. God knew the future, and he made a way for a broken relationship to be restored just in time for an even greater need to be met. For the next few months, they lived next door to my house in their motorhome. They took care of my children so that I could focus on Brenda. I was able to go to work with a sense of relief knowing that the kids would be taken care of and I could spend more time with her. And for some unknown reason, she just started getting better. As quickly as the disease attacked her, it began to disappear. She came home, and Dad and his wife were there to care for her, allowing me to go to work, earn the living needed to provide for my family without worry about her welfare or theirs. Brenda recovered miraculously, and Dad and his wife went back home, and our relationship over the years has been nothing less than wonderful. God made it clear to me through all of that he was ready to accept full responsibility for the life wholly committed to him. So here I am now. I've been a police officer for 39 years on the 29th of this month. I was appointed as the chief of police on April the 9th of this year, after serving as deputy chief for 14 consecutive years. I'd reached a point in my life where I really didn't see being the chief as something that God had in store for me. And when I heard that the county manager was advertising nationally to fill the position, I even questioned whether or not I should apply. I was 60 years old, had a lot of mileage on me. There were a lot of, no doubt, others who were younger and more capable than I was. However, my wife once again insisted and said that if it was God's will, it would happen, and if it wasn't, well, I had a great job that I enjoyed, and I could still go to work each day and have fun. Well, history reflects what God's will was, and the first 7 months of my time as chief of police have been, without doubt, an experience. We've had 2 police-involved shootings. 2 of our officers have taken their own lives. One of our officers was tragically taken from us in a crash. We had a manhunt in eastern Henrico that created a great deal of stress for me, as a violent robber who had escaped from a vehicle during a shootout with our officers and spent 48 hours eluding us before we actually captured him. His partner was involved in 3 shootouts with our police officers before we eventually brought the situation with him to a close, and we eventually apprehended his partner. I've had to deal with multiple personnel issues, 10 of which have resulted in individuals leaving the service of the police division. We've had a hurricane, an earthquake, and I found myself with little time to focus on anything other than my work. I've called my pastor more times in the past 7 months than I probably did in the preceding 7 years, and he has always been there for me. At my request, the Fraternal Order of Police began a devotion and a prayer time for our police officers, which they do every other Thursday morning, and our police chaplains have provided some inspiration, some guidance, and prayer for all of our members at these events every week. I couldn't do it as the police chief, but I could get them to do it as the FOP. Morale is good, crime is down, and we're moving forward. So despite the negative things that I've had to deal with in these short 7 months, God's granted me opportunities to reach out to others who have come to me for prayer, with problems which required prayer, or they just wanted to talk to me about things that are going on in their lives. Recently, I had 2 sergeants come to my office, and they just wanted to talk. So we sat down, and one of them told me that they really knew that the first 7 months of my time as a chief had been difficult. But they were people who were believers, and there are a lot of them in law enforcement that probably you don't know that, but there really truly are. And they said that they thought my time had been tough, probably tougher than it needed to be or should have been, but that they believed that God had picked me for this time. And they didn't know of anyone else who could have let us do it as well as I did. Forgive me, I cry at football games. I was so humbled by these words that I just kept thinking to myself, I almost didn't even apply. But God had a plan, and regardless of what my plans might have been, or even what I would have wanted for myself, He made me believe in the past few months, more than He ever has, that He is ready to accept full responsibility for the life that is wholly committed to Him. Now, I want to take a minute and read a prayer to you from a prayer book that my pastor gave to me the first day that I was the chief. I didn't want to start my time off as chief without taking some time to go to my office. The first thing I did, have him come by and pray with me. And I wanted that to be the first act I did as a police chief. And And he gave me a little book called the Leadership Prayer Book, and he told me that I would use it a lot, and he is right. I have used it a lot. And I want to read one prayer to you that has really meant a lot to me and that I've read more than any of the other prayers in that book. This is my one incessant prayer to you, hour by hour, day by day. It's yours. I am not fighting this battle for you, God. It is your battle, and you're fighting it for me. It's all yours. I want what you have for me in this situation. It's not my organization. It's yours. So I depend on your Spirit to show me what to do. These are not my people. I chose them, and I organized their efforts, but they don't belong to me. You entrusted them to my leadership, and they agreed to follow me. They deserve more and sometimes expect more of me than I can give them. What they really need is enormous. And if I take their needs and hopes and fears on myself personally, I will be crushed instantly. They are yours. So much depends on me, yet all I have for this task is whatever health and energy you give me. My ears, my eyes, my heart, back, lungs, knees, hands, feet, voice. I eat carefully, rest, exercise, think positive thoughts, and still this wretched lump of clay fails me. You have creator's rights on my body. You formed every miraculous part. What you take away is your business. I will do what I can with whatever physical capability you give me. It's yours. Yours is the kingdom, but we never seem to have enough resources. We're always lacking something, our dreams always mocking our reality, our vision always dancing around our poverty. You own everything, so what we need must seem small to you. Show me where to look for it, how to know it when I see it, how to get it, how to use it best, and especially how to be content with it. It's all yours. Time crawls relentlessly and mercilessly onward. The days end as the years end, with never enough time for all the good that could have been done, only just enough for your priorities, and that's if I get them right. You created time, and it doesn't limit you. But I do not have 1,000 years today, God. I have only now. So this day is yours. I am yours. These people are yours. The resources are yours. The challenges we face are yours, as is anything we hope to accomplish. It's yours, God, not mine. Each time I read that, I think of it in the context of being the police chief in an organization with 811 employees, all who have hopes and dreams and individual thoughts, things they want to occur in their life. And it's an awesome responsibility to feel that and to know that. And to know that there are 310,000 people who live in Henrico County who depend on me to provide a safe environment for them to raise their children and to seek their hopes and dreams as well. But I love God, and God loves me, and He has consistently proven to me, as He will to you, that He is ready to accept full responsibility for the life that is wholly committed to Him. God bless you, and thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Before we were able to greet y'all today, Doug and I were talking, and I said, don't change anything from last week. I'm not sure what you changed. It was excellent last week, and it's better today. So thank you, my friend. I really appreciate your transparency and just sharing some of what God's done in your life and continues to do in your life. You know, I could not help but think, as I have listened now for the second time to this message, because he spoke last week at the Westwood Club, as I'm sitting in the back of the room, about how this message of a man's life is just permeated with different themes. But the one theme that comes to my mind today that we've heard over and over and over again is the theme of God's sovereignty. He's just there. For those who know and love Him, He is regularly present and wants us to give Him opportunity to move in and change our lives. And for those who are perhaps not quite there in a relationship with Him, He stands ready, willing, and desirous of that relationship. God's sovereignty is all over Doug Middleton's life. I mean, we heard it today. And as I process that theme, a passage that comes to mind and came to mind earlier is one that I think would fit either one of those categories. Whether we happen to know him and really are seeking to know his direction in a certain area of our lives, or maybe we haven't quite gotten there in our relationship to him, that we don't really quite know for sure that he is a part of our lives. We'd like him to be, but don't really know how to do that. This passage, this is one of Jesus' statements. He says this to actually all of us today. He says, "Come to me, all of you who are burdened and heavy laden. Come to me," Christ says, "all of you who have difficulties and need answers and need direction in life." And the text goes on to say, "And I will give you rest." And that word rest means peace. So as you think about this sovereign God that Doug Middleton is so much appreciative of and loves, he's really extending his hand to us, and he says, "Come to me with your problems and your burdens, and particularly your desire to know me, and I'll answer all of those needs." It really doesn't get any better than that. And it really is very real in people's lives who have experienced it, and we've heard one today who has. So I'd like to close with a prayer.